Well, good afternoon, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. I would like to welcome everyone to today's Inspiration Wednesday session. My name is Jamie Cummings, and I'm a trainer here with Trivantis Corporation. Today's session is on SCORM, how to publish your Lectora title to the Learning Management System. Now, to start off, let's go over some housekeeping items. For those of you who have not attended an Inspiration Wednesday session, please note that this session is being recorded and will be out on the Lectora University by early next week. Currently, we have about 120 archived sessions out there for you to view. And you'll also notice upon login that everyone's audio is placed on mute. This is due to the large amount of attendees so that we do not have any background noise or distractions. Now, with that said, if you have any questions, please place them in the questions panel that GoToMeeting provides, and I will leave 10 to 15 minutes at the end of the presentation to answer. Now, this presentation is set to last about 50 minutes or so. So what we're going to do is go ahead, jump right in, and once again, I want to welcome everyone to today's Inspiration Wednesday webinar. Now, the main focus today is to break down all the SCORM options step by step on how to fully integrate your Lectora titles into SCORM. Now, you will learn the options available within Lectora that will allow you to track completion status, SCORM published content options, and how to upload your title to your learning management system. Now, for those of you publishing to AICC, these are the same standards that are required when publishing. Now, just as a heads up, I will be jumping back and forth between the title that you currently see in front of you and also a Lectora title, just so you can see these options that we're going to be discussing firsthand. Okay, so first things first, let's go over just a definition of what AICC and SCORM actually are. So AICC and SCORM represent a collection of standards for web-based e-learning. Your learning management system, or LMS, which is used to deliver content, monitor a learner's participation, and access performance, often determines which set of standards your content needs to comply with. Now, these are kind of book definitions, if you will, that you're seeing in front of you. AICC actually stands for Aviation Industry Computer-Based Training Committee. Now, this was established in 1993. These standards only focused on CD-ROM-based training up until about 1998. This is when web-based training was also included. Now, what AICC actually does is communicate with the learning management system by sending HTTP messages to the LMS and then interpreting the responses from the learning management system. So uploading published content to a learning management system using AICC is typically a multi-step process. Now, in regards to SCORM, this is going to stand for Shareable Content Object Reference Model. So SCORM works with a convenient package procedure, and uploading courses to the learning management system is as simple as uploading a zip file. So this SCORM conformant course will communicate with the learning management system by calling methods of JavaScript called the API adapter. Now, there are several different versions of SCORM. However, the most common ones are SCORM 1.2 and 2004. Now, what that shareable content object actually indicates is that SCORM is all about creating units of online training material that can be shared across systems. SCORM defines how to create shareable content objects, or SCOs, that can be reused in different systems. And then that reference model portion reflects the fact that SCORM isn't actually a standard. ADL didn't write SCORM from the ground up. Instead, they actually noticed that the industry already had many standards that solved part of the problem. So SCORM simply references these existing standards and tells developers how to properly use them together, which is what we're going to focus on today. So with that said, let's take a look at our SCORM standard checklist. These are all Lectora related. So you're going to notice that there are 9 items in this list that I want to discuss throughout today's webinar. So we're going to go from how to set up your actual title to make it SCORM compliant. If you want to work with assignable units and set up prerequisites, how do you go about it? If you want to work with additional variables that are compliant with your learning management system, how to actually submit the test score by working with your LMS and different assignable units, and then publishing content and uploading it to your learning management system. So let's go ahead and start off with this first one. Setting your title for AICC or SCORM. Now your type of title should be consistent with the preferred publishing format for your title. Well, that makes sense. If you're creating content that's going to be distributed on a CD, you're going to build content that can be viewed on a CD. If you're going to be publishing content for HTML, same concept. So in this case, we want to make sure that we're meeting all those SCORM AICC requirements when building our title. One of the first things you're going to want to do is select the AICC SCORM option in the window that you currently see here. This window provides you with the option of using multiple assignable units throughout your title. Now, if you do not set this option, you will be unable to add assignable units and utilize additional AICC SCORM variables. So if you choose not to select this option and still publish the AICC or SCORM, your entire title will be considered the assignable unit. So designating your title as AICC SCORM compliant is then going to notify Lectora what type of errors to look for during that error check process. So as an example, you'll notice, and we'll talk about this in just a few moments, it's required to have an exit button on all AICC SCORM courses. If you don't put that exit button in there and you publish the SCORM, it's going to run as an error. So it's making sure that you're meeting, once again, all those standards, all those requirements. So let's go ahead and take a look how to do this within our partial title. I'm going to go ahead, open up Lectora. I have this template already created for me. What I want to do is make sure that this course that I'm building is set to be AICC SCORM compliant. All I have to simply do is access the design ribbon, and from this location, select title options. And from here, this is where I can say my title type is AICC SCORM or even tin can related for a learning management system or a learning record store. So all you're doing is setting it up to work with your learning management system. Once you click OK, you're going to notice everything's bundled into what we call an assignable unit. Think of this assignable unit as a SCO. It kind of packages up your content. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about assignable units. What are these going to do for you? So first things first. Once the title has been designated as AICC, SCORM, or tin can compliant, all content created within the title is contained within an assignable unit. If you are publishing the AICC or shareable content object, if you are publishing the SCORM. So what is an assignable unit or scope? Well, here it is. Assignable units are specific to titles that you are preparing for a learning management system and learning record stores. So an assignable unit is the largest unit of organization in an AICC SCORM published title. So it's best to think of an assignable unit as a self-contained package of information or a lesson. So assignable units cannot contain other assignable units, but they can contain chapters, sections, tests, and pages. And assignable units are useful when determining sequence of modules or prerequisites. Now you can add multiple assignable units to your title, modify the sequence and naming conventions as needed. Now, please note, and this is what's in bold here, that all navigation between assignable units are handled by the learning management system. So if you create navigation from one assignable unit to another within your Lectora title, you're going to receive an error when publishing. So once again, all navigation between assignable units is handled by the learning management system. Once again, I'll make note of this. There must always be at least one assignable unit defined within the title. So when you select the title type as AICC, SCORM, or Tin Can compliant, from the titles options within that design ribbon, an assignable unit is going to get created and generated for that title. If that option is not selected and you publish to a learning management system, an assignable unit encompassing the entire title is automatically created. You just will not have those options to utilize variables from AICC and SCORM, and you will not be able to create assignable units. Okay, so now let's jump back into this Lectora title. Let's see how we can actually come in and add additional assignable units. Well, simple process. From the home ribbon, you're going to notice that you can come in this add structure section and select to add an assignable unit. So I'm going to go ahead, add 2 assignable units. Now I am working with a design theme within Lectora, and part of my navigation is outside of this assignable unit 1. I'm just going to drag this down so everything's packaged in that one assignable unit. Now, let's just say you're creating a course, training your dog, and this assignable unit 1 is going to reference all the content for training your dog 101. So the beginning steps. Maybe assignable unit 2 is going to reference training your dog 102. So you kind of see where I'm going with this. And then assignable unit 3 is going to be training your dog 103. Okay, so now I'm just going to come in, add a couple of blank pages to these assignable units just so we have some content in there. And now we have our assignable unit, training your dog 101, 102, 103. So what's the benefit of actually working with these assignable units? Let's go ahead and jump into our overview again. And let's take a look at assignable unit properties and prerequisites. So what you can do as a developer is provide AICC SCORM related information as it pertains to each assignable unit. So you're going to notice whenever you create an assignable unit, there's properties assigned to it, just like everything else in Lectora. But you're also going to notice an information tab. This information tab is going to provide you with 5 different sections that you can customize. This information will transfer over into your learning management system. So this first section is just basic information. So your system ID is going to specify the assignable unit within the current title. This cannot be modified. It just automatically recognizes A001 A002, etc. The developer ID is specific for the developer or author of the assignable unit. And then the type. All you can do here is specify a short description for the type of assignable unit within the learning management system. So by default, the value is going to be set to lesson. So if you want to change this to quiz, exam, you name it, you can customize this as needed. Now the description section, pretty self-explanatory. You can just write a description of the assignable unit. But here's the thing. Whatever you type in here, this entry will appear in most online catalogs for the assignable unit once that title is published to AICC or SCORM Learning Management System. So any online catalog providing any type of description for a course, this is where it's going to pull from. In regards to the score, you can set up a maximum point or a mastery score. In regards to the points score, what you're doing here is specifying the maximum number of points that a user can receive when completing this title. If you leave this blank, Lectora will automatically supply this value with 100 points times the total number of graded tests within the assignable unit. In regards to the score, you can obviously place the score that marks where a user will be considered to have passed the assignable unit. Once again, by default, the value is always going to be set to 75%. Keep in mind, this will actually combine all of the tests within the one assignable unit, and we'll come back to that. In regards to the time limit, you can specify the maximum time that you want users to be able to spend within the assignable unit. You can leave this field empty if you want to give users unlimited time to access the assignable unit. And last but not least, we have our prerequisites. So a title can contain multiple assignable units, as I just showed you. So if there are multiple assignable units, prereqs can be set within the individual's assignable unit's properties. So the learning management system will ensure that the prereqs are fulfilled before allowing the student to access the assignable unit. Now we'll go through the whole process of how to actually set these up within Lectora. So let's go ahead and jump in there. So you'll notice we have our Training Your Dog 101, Training Your Dog 102, and 103. As soon as I select that assignable unit, that properties ribbon automatically appears, so you can customize the properties for the overall look and feel of this assignable unit within your Lectora title. So your basics, page size, inheritance features, background text options, all the things you guys should all be familiar with. But here's that information tab that we just discussed. This is where I can come in and customize my developer. So if I want to go ahead and put in the author of my content, I can do so. My assignable unit type, I can go ahead and customize this. Any type of description, we provide you with this little arrow icon in the bottom right-hand corner to allow you to type additional information, give you a little bit more room. Your score options, if you need to change this, you can do so. Enable your time limit. You'll notice that we have 4 options to select from. So if you do set up a time option, you can go ahead and continue with no message. You can continue with a message, exit out of the course with no message, or exit with a message. So that's just going to show them that they are enabled with an hour time limit in this case when they're actually previewing this course. Now, in regards to the prereqs, as soon as I select this option, you're going to notice the other 2 assignable units appear that are assigned to this one Lectora title. So now I can tell Lectora that my user has to view and pass or complete the Training Your Dog 101 course before having access to the 102 course. Or if this is just content that you want your user to review and you do not care what order they go into, you can go ahead and select both of these options in this case. And then from the drop-down menu, you're going to notice there's another option to say any of the following that are selected below have to be viewed before going into Assignable Unit 102. So completely up to you how you want your user to navigate from these prereq options. And then you simply click OK. That information gets transferred over into your learning management system. Okay, the next thing I want to discuss is actually working with ICC SCORM Variables. So if you have designated your title as an ICC SCORM Course Mill published title, the following additional variables are going to be available within your title. Now, I'm hoping for those of you on the call have a pretty good understanding of what variables actually do for you. And we all know that Lectora comes with a variety of different reserved or predefined variables. Well, as soon as you set up your course to be ICC SCORM compliant, you have all these additional ICC SCORM variables that you can use. Now, one of the examples that I'm going to give you today is using the ICC student name variable. So you are going to be able to take your user's login from your learning management system and transfer it to a specific location in your title. So let's say they log into the course, the first page they see is going to say, "Welcome, Jamie," or "Hello, Jamie," and that name is being pulled from your learning management system. Or let's say you want to take your user's login, transfer it to a certificate of completion. Now you'll notice by the list of the variables that are provided, you have ones where you can pull in the ICC credit option. So this variable is going to reflect whether the title is being taken for credit or just a title that you want the user to browse through, if you will. You're going to notice that you can set up a lesson status for complete and incompletion. And if I scroll through this list, there's some additional ones that are specific for working with CourseMill. So for any of you guys that are actually working with CourseMill, which is Trivanus's learning management system, you have 3 additional variables that you can access. So let's go ahead, jump back into Lectora. Now, if you're not familiar with the variable manager, this is located within your tools ribbon, and the variable manager is going to provide you with all those variables that I just pointed out. So here within that reserve tab, you're going to provide a list of variables that are already predefined and also some ICC SCORM variables. So once again, if I select any of these variables, Lectora is going to provide me with a description of how this variable can be used within my course. What is it going to do for me? So I can go ahead and say, okay, I want to pull in the lesson location. So this variable is going to literally contain the current location within the title content. If I want to pull in the student language, this variable is going to contain the user's language as reported by the learning management system. So these are specific for your LMS. So let's go ahead and let's say you want to take your user's name from the learning management system, transfer it to a certificate. So right now I currently have a generic certificate just kind of sitting on my course. And you're going to notice on this particular page, I have a text block called student name. So once again, hoping that you guys understand the use of variables, think of this text block as a container of information. So currently, it's just showing student name. We literally want to change that information and reference the user's login from the LMS. So all I need to do is select my page and go up to my insert ribbon and choose to add an action. From my action ribbon, I'm going to go ahead and name this display student name. And I'll go ahead and just put, so you guys know, LMS. So we're pulling that name from the learning management system. So the trigger itself is going to be left on show. So as soon as this page opens, this action is going to execute. Now, in regards to the action, what I want to do is actually change information that's currently inside of that student name text block. So my action becomes change contents. The target I'm changing contents of is that student name text block. And in this value field, it's going to reference all the variables that I can pull into this container. So in my case, I want to pull AICC student name. Now, if I go into my preview mode, I'm not going to see anything take place. Reason being, this content that you're viewing is not hosted on a learning management system. I'm not logged into an LMS right now, but that's an easy way of pulling information from your LMS. Now, with that said, I know a lot of people have the issue to where your LMS has everyone's name set up with the last name first, first name last. That's how it will display in this case on the certificate. So your learning management system controls all that information. Okay, next thing, let's go ahead and focus on working with course completion. So by default, you cannot successfully publish a title to AICC SCORM if the title does not include a graded test. So the AICC SCORM standards require that a completion status be associated with the course, and this completion status is tied to the results of a test. So the following two actions that you see on the screen provide a workaround for manually setting the completion status. So when these actions are included within your title, you can then successfully publish the title to AICC or SCORM, even if the title does not include a test. Now, before we actually jump into what you're seeing on the screen, I find this one easier to actually show you within Lectora. And then I'll come back to this. So let's go ahead, open up Lectora. So let's say there is no test within my course. So I'm going to go ahead, delete the two tests that you currently see here. And the user's navigating through the course. It's just a course that you literally want them to view content. They're not being tested on it, but you still need a completion status. That's exactly what I'm referring to right now. So what you're going to do is on the very last page of the course that you think your user is going to be landing on, you're going to add this action to kind of trick Lectora so it communicates to your learning management system that the user has completed the course. So with that page selected, once again, you're going to add an action to that page level. And let's just say that we're going to name this action Modify Completion Status. And once again, working with our learning management system. So this action is going to execute as soon as the user opens this page. So the trigger is left at show. The action. Once again, we're going to be working with a variable. But in this case, the variable that we're focusing on, we need it to be modified. So the action, modify variable. The target. This is where it gets tricky because it all depends on what version of SCORM that you're working with, which I'll come back to. But the target here, let's think of this as the AICC SCORM. So think of your user logging into a course for the first time. They haven't viewed everything, so the score out on your learning management system is set to 0 or incomplete. It's empty. So what we're saying is when they actually land on this page, let's go ahead and modify that variable, AICC score, and set it equal to a value of 100. That's going to send over a value of completion to your learning management system. So once again, this is only if you do not have a test within your course. Now, if I have anyone on the call that works with HealthStream as their learning management system, just as a heads up, if you do have a test in your course, you still need this action on the very last page. So this is required just for HealthStream. Okay, so let's jump back into this overview just to kind of get a little bit more in detail here. So if you're working with SCORM 1.2, you're going to notice that that's the action that I just created. You're focusing on that target as that AICC score container, and you're setting it equal to 100. Now, in regards to working with SCORM 2004, the target actually is AICC lesson status, and you're setting this equal to completed. Now, there's also a little trick that comes along with this. So let me open up kind of this additional window to give you some tips. First off, always consult the correct terminology that's going to be recognized by your learning management system for that correct value setting. What I mean by this is, the two most common values for SCORM are completed and passed, all lowercase. Now, some learning management systems are very specific and require a capital C within that completed value field. Now, to confuse you even more, for AICC, one single letter is needed for the value, so either C or P. Now, while AICC learning management systems are not usually as specific as SCORM in terms of capital versus lowercase letters, my recommendation, always use lowercase. You're pretty much safe with that one. So keep in mind, this value, it's what's actually being placed into that value field down below. That's what gets submitted to your learning management system. So just kind of keep that in mind. Okay, let's go ahead and move forward. The next thing I want to point out to you is exiting the course. So an exit title action is going to be needed within your Lectora title when publishing to AICC or SCORM. This action enables learners to exit the course and return to the learning management system. Now you'll notice, if you do not have an exit title action, then when you go to publish, you're going to receive an error. Now keep in mind, if you have multiple assignable units within your title, each one needs to have an exit title action. So let's go ahead, jump back into our Lectora course. Now I'm going to undo just a couple of things here because I need my test back. Okay. So what I want to do just real quick is go to my home ribbon and I'm going to publish out to SCORM. Now, I know I'm going to have a couple of errors, but that's what I'm looking for. So you'll notice this first red error that you see here is saying Assignable Unit Training Your Dog 101 is missing an exit title action. So you must have an exit title action somewhere in an assignable unit for AICC compliance. I'm also going to have one for Training Your Dog 102, and then the second one from the bottom, Training Your Dog 103. Now, we also mentioned that you have to have that test or that action showing completion of the course. That's what these other errors are reading. So Assignable Unit Training Your Dog 102 is missing a scored test or a Modify Variable action. Same with 103. So let's take care of the exit title. So I'm going to cancel out of here. I'm just going to put a generic exit button on my title. So I'm going to go over to my stock library. I'm going to select just a random exit button, drag it onto my course. Now, I know it doesn't match the interface, but you'll get the idea. So this action attached to this exit button is set to literally exit the course. Excuse me. So that's all you need. So I'm just going to simply copy this exit button, put it on Training Your Dog 102 and Training Your Dog 103. That's simple. So now, if I go to publish out my content to SCORM, those 3 errors saying that I needed an exit title action, no longer visible. Okay, let's go ahead, cancel out of here. Let's go ahead and jump back into this overview. The next thing I want to focus on is working with the score. So let's just say it this way. Each assignable unit that's included in your Lectora title can contain multiple assessments. So if you have one assignable unit, Training Your Dog 101, and you have 3 tests just in that one assignable unit, only one score will be reported to the learning management system per assignable unit. So the scores for each test within an assignable unit are added up and then divided by the number of graded tests. Now, you can display these individual scores to your learner within the title, but only one overall score will be submitted. So just take a look at my example here. Let's say I have 2 tests within my assignable unit. I'm showing the user that they passed the first test with an 80, the second test with 100, but the score submitted to the learning management system for that assignable unit is going to be 90. So you just take the average of those tests that are built within one assignable unit. Okay. The next thing I want to point out are all the publishing options when publishing for AICC or SCORM. So you're going to use the SCORM Options tab within the Publish SCORM location window to specify all of your options pertaining to the SCORM system. Now, the first one that you're going to notice is going to be what version of SCORM are you currently working with? Now, you've set up your options one time, and that's all you have to do. Everything gets kind of delivered into your learning management system, and Lectora remembers what you created initially. So you choose if you're working with SCORM 1.0, 1.1, 1.2, or 2004. Once again, the most common is 1.2 and 2004. These next 3 options, these checkboxes that you currently see, are Lectora related. Now, just as a heads up, just because Lectora supports these options does not mean your learning management system does. So I'll describe this in a little bit more detail once I go through each one. So this first one allows you to launch your course in a separate window from the learning management system. So you can select this option if you want the published title to be launched from the SCORM system in a new window. So when this option is selected and the user exits from the title, this window will close, the user will be returned to your learning management system. Now, keep in mind that your window size is determined by the learning management system. So when you're developing your content in Lectora, build your course based on the window size your LMS uses for best results. Now this next option, report test and survey question interaction to the learning management system. This is one of those ones that your LMS may not support. So basically what you're doing here is turning this on so you can record all the interaction for the questions contained in the graded test that's being submitted to your learning management system. This interaction is going to include question text. This can only be read within CourseMill or SCORM 2004. This can also record the user's answer, whether the user's answer is correct or not, the time the question was answered, and amount of time that the user spent on the page containing the answer. So once again, keep in mind that your LMS may only allow you to track a grade or complete versus incomplete status. This next one is a bookmarking tool, so you can select this to enable the automatic bookmarking feature for your published content. So when this is turned on and your user logs out of a course, logs back in, it's going to ask them if they want to be taken to the page that he or she last viewed within the published title. Now down below, this is all course information. So for the course creator, once again, you can specify the name that you want the SCORM system to display as the creator of the published title. Course ID, so you can specify the ID of the course as it will be known within your course system. The title of your course, any additional keywords that you may want your user to be able to search through within your learning management system. So any of these search terms are going to be compared to course titles and keywords that will help users find the content within your learning management system. The URL, this will allow you to specify the web address of the location of the course within your SCORM system. And then once again, any type of course description. So let's go ahead, open up our Lectora course. I know I need to add a couple of things into these existing assignable units. So let me just throw this in here real quick. I'm going to add an action to show completion status again. So I'm going to go ahead and tell Lectora to modify my variable of my score for AICC, set it equal to 100. I'm just going to copy this and put it on my third one. So now when I publish, I won't have any errors. So I'm going to go to my home ribbon. I'm going to go ahead, publish out my content to SCORM. It's going to run through its first process. Everything in blue is an error, or I'm sorry, not an error. Don't confuse yourself there. So everything in blue is a warning. Ignore them. All these are warnings specific for components within your course. It's giving you file size. Whereas, as you saw earlier, anything in red is an error and has to be corrected before moving forward. So let's go ahead, publish this out. Here's your SCORM options. So we can turn on our LMS information and then any type of additional course information that we want available within our learning management system. Now, keep in mind, you also have HTML options. So these are just basic options to publish out your content if you want to place it in a zip file, which is what I would recommend to easily upload to your learning management system. You can set up custom pop-up windows. You can create alt tags for images and navigation. You can protect your content, taking away the right-click option from your end user. You can also FTP your content. So if you're able to FTP content, you will have your own login that you guys would be aware of here, and you can automatically upload your content to your LMS from this one location. So when all said and done, click OK. It's going to run through its final process. This should just take a couple of seconds to go through. And you'll notice when this is actually all said and done, you cannot preview it until it's actually uploaded to your learning management system. So all I have to simply do is click on Done and locate my published file, which is going to be placed within my initial root folder that I was saving my course to. Now, just as a little tip, before I ever publish to SCORM, I always come into Lectora and publish to review link or publish to HTML. Because when I actually publish to either one of these, let's just say HTML to start out with, I can actually preview my content within a browser, making sure that everything is working correctly. Now, SCORM.com also has a cloud that you can upload SCORM content to, and it will make sure that everything is SCORM compliant, so you can test it out there as well. So I can go ahead and preview this content in any browser that I have installed on my computer, and then go through that publishing process to publish out to SCORM. Now, in regards to actually locating that file, let me go ahead and jump forward here. As I mentioned earlier, once you have successfully published your content, you will then locate that zipped folder, upload it to your LMS. So in your root folder with your Lectora title, you're going to have a SCORM folder that provides you a zip file, and that's what you send to your learning management system. So with that said, let me go ahead and open up this folder because I already have it created. And within this course, you're going to notice I have a SCORM folder. Inside of here, an HTML file. And inside of here is my zipped file. And this is what I send and upload to my learning management system. So that packages everything together for you, and it's going to extract everything once you push it out to your LMS. So when all said and done, once you have all of your checklists completed, creating your content, making sure that it is set to be AICC SCORM compliant by going into that design ribbon option, creating any type of assignable units and setting up the corresponding properties and prerequisites. If you want to work with any additional variables that are AICC SCORM related, making sure you're setting up the right course completion. If you have a test and you want the graded test to be submitted, or if you need to have that modify variable action to show completion of your course. Making sure that you have an exit button on all assignable units. Making sure that if you are working with assignable units and you have multiple tests, that you have the understanding that it will submit the average of those tests. Publishing out your SCORM content with all of your options, and then uploading it to your learning management system. So once you've met those 9 standards, you're ready to go and submit everything out to your LMS. So overall, that's going to be the overview on how to work with SCORM and publish out your content. I know I have a few questions over in the questions panel. So let me go ahead and jump over there real quick, and then we'll wrap up